Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cosmic Concerto. I am William B. Hill, and he is.
Brandon.
Okay, that
Yeah.
is all right. All right. Today we are doing what we are going to call a mini episode. This is not a full episode. We are not going to rant and ramble for 40 minutes. Instead, we're going to talk less time about a short soundtrack. In this case, the special promo CD that came out with Chrono Trigger on the DS at GameStop. This is the Chrono Trigger Orchestra Extra soundtrack. And this was for people who pre ordered the game whenever it first came out.
hmm
And this was in 2009, correct?
Uh, yeah. Yeah, that actually was. Yes. That's when the DS version came out.
Woo!
Wow.
I remembered.
I can't believe that much time has passed. It's 2014. That shit came out in 2009. Wow.
Actually, was it 2008?
No,
Since we're getting this wrong,
it was 2009.
I guess it was 2008 in Japan then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I think regardless, we have.
It was a long time ago.
It was several years ago, and I've only beaten Chrono Trigger on the DS once since then. But anyway, as most video game music fanatics already know, Yasunori Mitsuda is pretty much a god amongst Japanese role playing games, soundtrack composers, or video game music composers in general. The guy is just brilliant. He's worked on games like Xenogears, Chrono Cross, and Chrono Trigger. Oh man, Brandon, help me out because my memory's not so great after a day of work.
Oh, let's see. He's
Shadow
also
Hearts,
yeah, he did Shadow Hearts. He did what's that game for the PS2 that I
Sands
have?
of Destruction.
That's a DS game, but yeah, he did that one.
I know.
Um,
Suganai Atonement.
yeah, that was it. That's it. The one that
I'm
kind of
I'm
reminds me of
I'm
Resident
gonna
Evil
pray that I know
sometimes.
that's. I'm gonna pray that that's how that's pronounced.
He's also done Legia 2. He did Mario Party 2. He also did.
Wait, hold on. Mario Party 2?
Yes, he reused compositions and helped did the composition for Mario Party 2.
That gives me all new love for that game. That's actually, if I'm not mistaken, that's actually my favorite of the Mario Party games.
He's done a
Back
lot.
whenever I used to play those with my sister.
He did Bomberman 64, Tobal Number 1. Of course, he did Radical
Wait,
Dreamers.
hold on, I have Tobo number one.
hmm
Where is it? Come here, off my shelf, you.
I mean,
Wow,
it was with other people, but he did help compose it.
God, that's cool. Things I did not know. Thank you, sir, for
And
filling
then
me in
more
on that bit of information.
a little bit more modern day, he did the Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah, I knew about that one. I don't like thinking about it because I started finished that game.
Oh, and
I
the
haven't really.
reason why I bought this Wii game, Arc Rise Fantasia.
Also, did not know that.
Yeah, the only
Man,
reason
Brandon,
why I
you
bought
always have such. You always fill me with such lovely information that I do not know.
it. Yeah.
But let's move on. Let's actually talk about what we have here. Now, since it's a mini episode for a mini CD, you cannot expect the CD to be very big. In fact, it is only two tracks. It is the orchestra version of the song Chrono Trigger, and then there's the Chrono Trigger medley,
Yeah.
which contains, what, about seven pieces of music in its complete runtime?
Two, three, four, five, six, and seven. Yes, seven songs. The CD itself is a grand total of 6 minutes and 18 seconds.
Worth it.
Yeah.
Seriously. Spoiler alert, everybody. We love this disc.
You see, no,
it,
see, I have a love-hate relationship with this disc for the simple fact it's only 6 minutes and 18 seconds. So some of the best orchestral music I've ever heard. It
I
should
kind of
be
want it
a
to be
full
61 minutes and 8
album.
seconds.
It should be a full album, but it's not.
Ah, yes. Instead of lamenting its brevity, we should move on and discuss the fact that this is. I mean, we should talk. We should tell the wonderful people why they should have either a pre-ordered this game way back in the day, or hitting eBay right now and trying to buy a copy. Well, let's go track by track. If you were to pull up Chrono Trigger orchestral version right now, orchestra, not orchestral, orchestra. I have to actually read the track list correctly. There's no L at the end of that. it's big.
Yeah, yes, there are. Yes, there are a lot of horns in the very first track, and I'm not sure. It goes a long way to showing his skill in composition about just how very dynamic his music is on this score. Um, because in the second one, it's mostly strings, but this one is very very horn oriented and almost to the point it's got a little bit of a 70s vibe to it.
Yeah, I can definitely hear that. There's a lot of bombast behind those horns, though, and despite that, whenever as it's coming out of the more rhythmic and the theme of the piece, as it's leaving the theme, you get some breaks that have some very light percussion and flute. I love flute. I love the flute. That's the reason why I like Jethro Tull so much. The flute in this track, whenever it's just repeating the melody over over a lighter part before it hits the the third section of the piece,
Hmm.
which goes back to more of not French horn, not tuba, somewhere in between. But we get like lower end horns in that penultimate section before we hit the finale. This song, oh, we'll go into this with a rearrangement. Uh, the only other disc I really have to compare this with is Final Fantasy VI Grand Finale.
Hmm.
That's the only one I have right now. And with the arrangements done for that score, some of the tracks are expanded on to kind of make more use of the existing melodies. And I wonder what could have been done to make this piece bigger as a result of the arrangement, because it's still very short. It's only a 2 minute track.
Yeah.
And what we get is pretty much basically a direct translation from the uh, original score to to an orchestra. Basically, it's kind of short in that regard. I mean, I kind of want it to be longer, not just because I want it to be longer, but because I feel like there's more that could have been done with this group of melodies, there's just more there that could have been done. I think as a in the arrangement, if they're going to do an arrangement for orchestra, they could have taken this in more directions. I feel like
Yeah, they could have,
obviously,
but I don't know. I mean, all they ever did for him was just come to select songs, so it would have required somebody to write extra music that was initially there, and could they have done it and still done it well? With the fans raised because you did that? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't hear anybody complaining about grand finale. And for example,
With typical,
Realm from Final Fantasy Realm
mhm.
from Final Fantasy VI Grand Finale. It's not. I don't remember what it sounds like in the original game, and that sounds bad. It really does. But the orchestra arrangement on Grand Finale takes on something of a Celtic vibe. The There's like light harp and winds, and then you have the melody played on bagpipes of all things. And once it all comes together as the piece unfolds, it's a more special version of what was already a good piece of music.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying that this is not. I mean, this is a spectacular translation from a synthesized piece of music to an orchestra because it's almost like a 1-1 ratio translation. And this is where you come into the question of orchestra versus the original version. Could it have been taken a direction that develops the music a little bit further, so that you get more out of this piece of music than the 2 minutes that it was originally written for to run the credits over at the end of the game?
I don't know, but I mean, the only the issue, another issue that you're maybe running into is that since this was for promotional, um, versus when Grand Finale was a full-fledged album.
Oh, true.
Am
They might
I
not
as
want
a
to.
company going to fork out the extra money to have this expanded for something like that? I mean, probably not. We're lucky we
Yeah,
got this.
especially since Square Enix never is pleased with the sales of anything.
No, no,
And
clearly.
likewise, they thought that Chrono. They thought Chrono Trigger did not sell enough. So
They gave us a sequel.
I don't know. You're exactly right in that regard. And Chrono
Was
Cross didn't sell enough. I read recently. I'm not sure if you read this. Did you know that um, Hironobu Sakaguchi? Again, I'm praying that I said this correctly. He actually pushed for more Chrono games. He was trying to keep that series moving. He wanted it to be another Final Fantasy
it could have been.
series, and it really could have been, but it never sold enough for management within Square Enix to say, "Okay, go ahead and do that."
Well, I mean, to be fair, I mean, Final Fantasy sells a little bit more, but it doesn't sell that drastically much more. I mean, you're still. I mean, the
No,
series did at least sell over 1 million copies per game. That's Final
but they
Fantasy
wanted,
doesn't do that terribly much more than that. I mean, maybe now they
especially the
do.
only one that ever did was Final Fantasy VII,
Yeah. So I mean,
and that game kind of ruined the company in a way. For as good as it is, that game ruined the company.
so yeah, that
If you really
whole.
think about it.
Do you remember the interview that they had before the DS game came out? They said, well, if you want more games, basically, you better buy a lot of copies. So
Yeah,
that
I do
that that
remember that.
definitely mirrors that so well. So yeah, that's kind of sad.
So I guess that my statement should be if they were to do a complete orchestra arrangements of Chrono Trigger music, they should try and extrapolate from the original material more so than they did on this disc. Sort of like On the Brink of Time, which is like a jazz fusion collection.
Yeah, I
So
like
I
that
guess
one.
I shouldn't complain. There hasn't been an arrangements collection quite like that one, except for The Brink of Time.
Yeah,
That's a cool disc. That's a
it
really cool
is.
disc.
Hell, at
I
least
wish it
that
was
game
available
got
in
a
America
yeah. At least that game did get an arrangement disc. We've been
of
waiting.
some kind.
We've been waiting years and years and years for an arrangement disc of the second game that's been promised to us for a while. And that one is supposed to be for orchestra, and you know, it's not supposed to be jazz. It's just an orchestrated album that we're
The
never
idea of
going to
Chrono
get.
Cross being the idea of some of the music from Chrono Cross being arranged for orchestra just I don't know if I could handle it when it actually released. I would have it. I would buy it. Oh
I
god, I
sold
would
out.
have it.
Oh, definitely.
That's one of my favorite scores. So now, so since I've harped on how much could have been done with the Chrono Trigger piece, let's talk about the medley just for a few moments in terms of the fact that they actually let's actually cite the person who did the arrangement. That's Natsumi Kameoka.
Hmm.
Kameoka.
That sounds good enough.
I'm saying that right?
I hope so. It
Sounds
sounds
good.
close. Sounds close. I mean, what do I know? I'm American.
Somebody from Japan will listen to this show someday and say, "Oh my god, what a twat."
I'm sorry, we're not
So,
Japanese. We don't know how to pronounce these syllables.
uh, yes, stupid Americans. Oh, anyway, to bring 7 tracks together in such a short amount of time, 4 minutes 11 seconds, 4 minutes 11 seconds to bring 7 tracks together and have them mesh together and flow just as seamlessly as the first track. The interesting thing is you can actually listen to this CD on repeat, and it's just as good each time.
Yeah.
And part of that is that the Chrono Trigger medley is so well composed, it's so well arranged. The tracks are selected in such a way that you get a nice cross section of the sound of that game without getting into the more experimental pieces. Like anything from 2300 AD on the soundtrack
Hmm.
is a little bit demanding musically. Since it's so minimalistic, it's like that wind sound effect and that very cold, um, like electric piano kind of sound,
Yeah, when he's
or
walking
maybe even like
outside.
pitch percussion. Yes, the world map theme for 2300 AD is one of the most depressing sounding pieces of music you've ever heard in your life. It's really good. I mean, in terms of setting up that atmosphere. So I'm kind of glad that it's not in this medley because everything that's in this medley has enough power and beauty to it, especially on the strings. Since it's more of a string oriented piece, there's still some big brass sections in there.
Hmm.
since it's so string focused, it's a very beautiful track.
Oh yeah, very
And I love
romantic
that it
for me.
opens with what's that again? What'd you say?
Said it's very
Like a
romantic.
romantic voice to it.
Yeah, yes. And it
I would
opened
agree
up
with
with
that.
a
Yes, definitely.
premonition.
Yeah, premonition was a nice little. It's subtle enough that it can lead into anything. And here's something that actually impresses me. The next track that it goes into is Guardian's Millennial Fair. This is basically the music you hear when you're at the carnival
Hmm.
at the beginning of the game. Excuse me, the fair. Same thing, games and rides and stuff. You got it. That track is not something that I would have ever imagined would have such a charismatic vibe outside of that sound. It's actually very beautiful when it's presented this way.
Hmm.
And I mean, I don't know, maybe the arrangement is just perfect because it takes a track that's, oh, this is the town music that you would hear for this part of the disc. And it shows you just how well written that piece of music is. Taking it out of the digital instruments, like the synthesized instruments sound, and
Hmm.
bringing it to strings. It's impressive.
It
It's
is.
absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, that's something I will say that the quote unquote town music in this game, I never think of it as town music. I never,
That's that.
would you mention it? I was just got to think, I was like, you know what? I've never once, ever in this series thought of the music in the background whenever I'm in a town or someone's home or in a certain section as, oh, look, this is town music. It doesn't sound like town music. It doesn't feel like town music, but it is town music. But that's like I said, that just shows his ability as a composer.
Definitely. And you can actually, and again, you can say that about Chrono Cross as well.
Yeah, that's what I said. The
Are you
series.
there, Staticky?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Definitely. And I could cite a few other games that have that ability. A few other scores that have that ability. I would say Final Fantasy VIII does that because there is no town music in that game. There are hardly any towns when you really think about it.
Well, there are a few, but no, they don't sound like town music. They sound like really nice music, like
But,
Fisherman's Horizon.
oh, yes. Or even the music from Balan Garden. What's the name of that track?
I thought that
Oh,
was the
man.
music track.
I really don't think it is. Me, look it up since I'm sitting here because I can. I own that soundtrack. Ha 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 ha. It is Balam Garden. Wow, I'm losing it. All I can remember is Blue
Woo!
Fields because I always skip Blue Fields.
That's the world map music.
Yes, with the plucked violin strings. Dum, 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 dum. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm such a nerd. Jeez.
Oh God.
Now, I will say, this, as far as this being a medley, and I still love this medley. This is my fault. I do not know the Chrono Trigger soundtrack well enough to cite the exact the melodies from each of these other tracks, which is very sad.
I
That might
can't
have something to do with the fact that I don't have the Chrono Trigger soundtrack.
even
I have
when
a
before
bootleg
I
of it.
didn't have the soundtrack. I know these songs. At least I know where they play in the game because that's how many times I
Oh,
played the game.
definitely. I don't know it by title, is what I'm saying. That's a little bit different.
Well, most of these titles are actually what you think they are. Like when you fight, when you first meet Frog and that theme plays. What do you think the name of this Frog
Yes.
theme? That there's nothing creative there. uh,
Obviously, that's the typical leitmotif thing.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. When you the battle with Magus, which is also in this melody, it's called the battle with Magus. There's nothing.
There's nothing quite so creative as the tracks on the Xenogears soundtrack, for
No,
example.
and there's only three of
Those are
these. Huh?
I was about to say the track titles on the Xenogears soundtrack are a little bit much.
They are a little. They would be a little bit
They're
harder to.
verbose.
Yeah, they would be harder to remember.
Yes, now that said, I've listened to it enough times. I love that disc.
Yeah, it is one of my favorites as well, which was no surprise. And look who composed it.
I'm gonna go ahead and tell everybody that's listening to this show. We're gonna have a hard time reviewing this guy's music because we like it.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say that I'm sure that I will find something he has done that I probably won't like because I am of the opinion that everyone does something that you're not going to like. Even Yumatsu
Like the
did
Mario
some.
Party 2 soundtrack.
Hey, I could probably find something creative to think about it. But I mean, even Nuyo has done something that I didn't like, notably the later scores that he's done. They just haven't been as good. But so
I
everyone's done something.
maybe. There's also that question that we've talked about a few times. As technology has progressed and we have actual like recordings of music on our scores instead of synthesized instruments, there's less.
Need for creativity.
I don't know. They're not as good. I mean, it's creative still, but it's not the same level of creativity. It's not the same challenge that
Yeah,
goes into
because now
composing a piece of
I mean,
music.
it's a different form of creativity. As in now, you don't have to be really creative in making sure what you're wanting to do comes out. Now you can just say, "Here's what I want it to do," and I could just do it. I don't need any special
Yeah,
things that could do it. It just does it.
it's not like the 8-bit era whenever you have the Final Fantasy overture being played in like one instrument sound basically. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's all about that different creative muscle that goes into it. And that's not to say that they're bad scores. I don't know them well enough to say if they're bad scores because I haven't finished any of those games and replayed them as many times as I have something like Chrono Trigger, which takes like 15 hours to blast through with a new game plus. So, I think that that is a sufficient discussion of the contents of this particular CD that we have here. If you were to look at on eBay right now, it's about a $9 CD
Yeah, six
to
to
buy
nine
this now.
dollars. Yeah, not too bad.
It's that's really not that bad, especially for something that's spectacular. Especially, I mean, you could also look at the actual Chrono Trigger DS soundtrack, and that has these two songs on it. If I'm not mistaken, correct?
They I don't remember. It's been a while. I've not looked. I mean, I have the score, but I haven't looked at it in so long. I can tell you in just a second. They have some arranged
Oh,
versions.
there are music videos. There's
Oh,
music videos on on the DVD.
yeah, I knew. I remember that.
Huh. Yeah, that's cool. Very cool. Well, thank you, Square Enix. Even if Brandon doesn't like the way the instruments sound on the Chrono Trigger original soundtrack from 2009 from the DS version, he can at least say that there's a really cool bonus on the DVD.
Yeah, and I don't
We'll
completely hate it.
we'll get to chop.
I've gotten a lot used to it. I've gotten used to it a lot more than I was before.
We'll have to cover that on an actual review of that soundtrack someday.
Yeah, I
You
thought
know,
we
whenever I find a copy. But I say, if you are a fan of video game music, you probably should buy this one. Yes, get on eBay, snap one up whenever it's only $6 to $9. Because who knows, someday it might jump up to 20 or $30 and it's only two tracks, and you'll feel foolish for not getting these 6 minutes for that price then. I would. I'm just glad I got it with my game
yeah,
that's now, you know, cheaper. No, actually, I think the price is shot back up on the game itself.
really. I mean, last time I saw, I think it was like 20. I don't remember how long
I
ago that
actually looked
was.
the other day and it
Oh,
has been a while, but let's see. Chrono Trigger at the Amazon.
the Amazon.
That's the Amazon, sir. Yes. Yeah, it's $30 on Amazon now.
Oh wow.
But you
Yeah,
won't get the lovely CD with for that $30.
no, no. When I this was a GameStop exclusive, wasn't it?
Sure was.
See, GameStop's not completely evil.
Yeah, they're just mostly evil.
Yeah, but they get
They want to give you stuff when you buy the games though.
yeah,
They just
yeah.
want you to bring it back for like a fourth the price. And actually their trade values have gone up quite a bit with that new thing that they're doing. But this is not a commentary about GameStop. Let's wrap this up. Chrono Trigger, Orchestra Extra soundtrack. You are awesome. Thank you for listening, everybody, and have a great night.
See you later.